Hi, welcome. I am Ashley Barnhart,
And I am her dad.
and this is Growing Pains, a podcast about discomfort and growth and
Learning how to let go.
learning how to let go. What should we talk about?
Well, I think that the first thing we should talk about is what this podcast is about,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
So, what does it mean to learn how to
to
let
grow
go?
and let
Right.
go.
And maybe we should explain why.
Why we're doing this.
Well,
How did it start?
okay,
Okay.
right. How did it start?
How did it start? So a lot of you have followed stuff that we've done in the past on Instagram. I was running a company called Strong Moms, doing dietetic work and training, and a lot of that, a lot of what I did really segued into helping people grow in other areas. It wasn't just working and saying, okay, we're only going to talk about diet because this is going to affect every aspect of your life if you really want to make a change and a long-term change. And I retired from that in 2020. Now I'm homeschooling my kids, and I've been having lots of people ask me, are you ever going to come back? What are you going to do? I miss, talking to you. I miss hearing from you. I miss these things. And I'm like, no, I'm never coming back. But here I am coming back because what I found was I was having these conversations with people. I was having conversations with you and struggling through things like everybody has been struggling in the last 3 years. Having to face a lot of discomfort and change and things that we haven't had to change and really in our lives. So that's kind of where it came from. And I posted a few weeks ago asking the people in my social media sphere what they would be interested in hearing about, and we got a lot of feedback that was general. It's like, oh, I want to hear about homeschooling. I want to hear about training. I want to hear about relationship advice. I want to hear about marriage advice, about parenting. And as we were talking about it, we basically decided that what people were looking for and what we have been talking about is growth.
Right.
And how that works and our own struggles with it. And that's how we came up with Growing Pains.
Right. And I think that it's important to recognize that why is the podcast called Growing Pangs, meaning that this is a difficult process to go through, and that difficulty has to do with learning how to let go of the things that you're holding on to that keep you safe and secure, and in all the variety of ways that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Or what you think is keeping you safe and secure.
Right.
Which is really often what isn't keeping us safe and secure.
Right. And one of the things that I bring to the conversation is that I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I've been doing that for over 30 years, and have experienced situations where people have needed to grow and they've struggled with growth, and organizing interventions and structures in their lives to help people develop that ability to go through the process of real change.
And people come to you specifically for growth.
Right.
So that is something that he really is an expert in, and he's going to be the expert in our field. And the plan is to talk with people about their experiences with difficult times, whether it's divorce or child rearing or political stuff or like all of these different things. So we're excited to bring you guys lots of different content but kind of rooted in the same philosophy of seeking growth.
Right. And hopefully, as we develop, maybe we will be able to interview people who've gone through periods of growth themselves and understand what it is that creates change in people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. That's been something a part of my life throughout my life is the need for change. And you know, Ashley said I'm an expert, but I'm certainly not an expert in change because there are so many people that I know in my life have been examples of change, and I am not. I have to say that I fall far short of that expectation that these people have actually shown me. But nevertheless, I still am, you know, on the journey of experiencing the need to do that and want to do that. And so I'm along with everybody else, you know, I may be the expert, but I'm not really the expert. I'm just here to I have a certain amount of knowledge, but I'm here to join with you in understanding how to go about that process. So that's basically what the podcast is about.
Yep. And I think a great segue into kind of a first story is that big catalyst of 2020, retiring from Strong Moms, making that decision that was the best way I can really describe it was it felt like a death. Hard to talk about even now, gets me a little verklempt because I didn't want to walk away from my business. I loved it. A huge part, most of my identity was wrapped up in my career and this company. And I was very happy to send my kids off to our world-class, at the time, public schools in the community that we live in. And like everybody else, I was going, okay, well, you know, what's the plan? What are we going to do? I had a child going into the third grade, a child with special needs. I had a child going into kindergarten, and then I had a little one, and like really little one. And wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. We were going to do the remote learning thing. And I knew I couldn't handle the workload of running a company at the capacity I was running it at, and also homeschooling, even in a small capacity with remote learning through the public schools. Mm-hmm. And it really boiled down to this moment where I completely fell apart in my kitchen. It was a Sunday, my husband was at work, and I had received a text, and I just kind of snapped, and I'm like, I can't keep juggling all of these balls, and also giving everybody what they needed. Mm-hmm. And it was, I saw it as I had 3 living human children and one entity that was kind of this breathing life, right? That wasn't a human, but needed to be kept alive to keep going. And looking at this going, what's more important? And I'm very honest, as many of you know, I don't hold back about my own struggles. Like I said, I didn't want to give this up. I loved it. I loved the money. I loved helping people. I loved the notoriety. I liked being recognized. It was great. I loved what I did. Truly, truly, every aspect of it. And I just said, I can't do it. And I had this complete breakdown. And through the following few years, so we're now 3 years out, it's 2023, I have allowed God to change me. Mm-hmm. And goodness, it has been, transformational. My outlook on things, how I dress, and I still have my moments when I'm with my husband and I want to look a certain way. Uh, it, that's I will always be me. I will always have that side of me, but I think about, oh my goodness, like I have these little boys now that I don't want to be showing certain things in front of certain people, and I need to be cognizant of that. Everything from modesty to how I speak to them, and how I interact with others, and standing up for things that I really, really, really believe in, and what that means. And we're living in this day and age that's just so different from, of course, we have Pluto still in the background, living this day and age where you have to really stand for something. And the fear of being canceled for standing up for something that you really believe in. As I say, you get canceled if you are silent. So,
And you're just sort of describing in some ways, the essence of what this podcast is about. And there will be a lot of anecdotal experiences on our part that will highlight the need for change and where change took place, and the struggle with the need to change. I mean, that thing that Ashley was articulating about COVID and her business impacted us too, me, myself, and my wife. And so there's a real aspect to this that I think we'd like to bring to you to help you understand how you might also need to change. So, but that basically that's what the podcast is going to be about. And there are a lot of stories that we have, and stories that we will refer to and both in literature and in scripture and various movies. There will be just a lot of illustrations that we will use to go back to that same kind of message. And so the idea that, to me, it comes with the idea that Jesus said, I forget where he said this, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it will not produce fruit. And the purpose of our life, as difficult as it may be, is to learn how to go through that process. And so when you die, you let go. And when you let go, the paradox is you receive. And that's the principle. Soren Kierkegaard said, the task of the man, the human, is to let go of the temporal and hold on to the eternal. And so we'll be talking about how that occurs. And
a lot of this stuff might be new philosophies and new things that you've never heard of, and that's okay. And the goal is to hopefully explain some of that and give a different perspective of how to live life. And we talked about, is this going to be a Christian podcast? And I said to my dad, I don't think I really, for me, it's not about saying it's a Christian podcast, but rather it's a podcast and we're Christians. And so these are our beliefs. And many of these things you maybe, like I said, things that you've never even considered, going, whoa, like die to self, like what does that even mean? So,
well, that's not just a Christian
correct
concept.
It's
it's a concept that's across psychology and other religions as well.
Right.
So we will be tapping into that. I don't know if people are that familiar with C.S. Lewis, but C.S. Lewis describes the sort of the world system as having, it's called the Tao. The Tao has this way of looking at life, and so that Tao principle is also part of what we're talking about now. So it would include other people of other belief systems.
Yeah.
Although we're Christians and we can articulate it from a Christian perspective really clearly, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to connect with other belief systems that
Right.
have the same kind of principle.
Right. Well, and I would caution you, if you're hearing like, oh my goodness, like you see my shirt, it says Jesus on it, or you hear us talking about being Christians, stay curious. We're not here to convert people. That's not what the podcast is about. It's simply about being human and having our beliefs. And I think that's a really important thing, especially in the day and age that we're living in, is to stay curious about other people and what their perspectives are. And if you really want to be a truly diverse person living a life that epitomizes diversity, you actually are open to diversity of thought and values and beliefs. I know I am. I think if you know me personally, you can attest to that. If you've ever met my dad, same thing. And we live and breathe that. It's less about pushing people away for not agreeing with us, and more about staying curious about, what is it that you feel about this, and how.
Well, yeah. So, well, the very thing that we're talking about is that, for instance, Jesus uses agriculture, the structure of agriculture, to talk about the process of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that applies across the board. So it's
And he does it over and over again, actually.
right, and and it may be
Well, and I think, and don't forget, like these same, what you reap, what you sow. Like that's a biblical phrase that we use in a secular world.
right. And as a person who's done a fair amount of counseling and understanding psychology, the idea of growth and letting go is central to that development in people's lives. So it's whether it's your marriage, whether it's your relationship with your children, whether it's relationship to your work environment,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's relationship to exercising, whether it's relationship to eating. It cuts across the board, so that people really need to learn how to understand this principle. And the more you understand it, the more at peace you will be. And if there's something that we need to experience in the world that we're living in now, is the ability to grab hold of that principle so that we can have peace.
Mm-hmm. And I think so many people are seeking that.
Everybody's seeking it.
And grasping at anything that might offer that. It's
And
like, oh, is it meditation? Is it THC, cannabis? Is it drinking? Is it, time with friends? Is it yoga? Like everybody's kind of looking for like, how can I find peace in this world that we're living in? Because it is such an intense place to be in. And it's coming at us from kind of every angle.
Mm-hmm. And so I'll be giving sort of psychological foundation and background to this whole principle, much more depth than what we're talking about now. But that's one of the aspects. Maybe it'll be a little challenging to some people because it's a little intellectual in terms of its thought process. Mm-hmm. But we'll do our best to try to articulate in a way that people can understand.
Yep. And I apologize, Pluto won't be barking through every single episode, I promise. I'm not sure what has his goose out there, but something is apparently very interesting that he's, or maybe, maybe he wants to be a part of the conversation. I could see that. He's
not letting go.
He can't let go. He can't let go.
Yeah.
So we're excited to bring this to you. We're excited to do this. This is special because we are together today. We're not typically going to be together as we go forward. But
we'll be about 500 miles apart.
Right. So we'll have to do the split screen thing. But yeah, we're excited to have you join us. And as always, feel free to comment, follow, like, share, and ask questions.
Right.
Stay curious.
Right.
Because that's what life's about, man.
If you're looking for homework, I would say if you want a movie to watch that's a fun movie, there are movies that are challenging and maybe not so fun to watch that I think are really good, but a movie that's fun to watch would be Groundhog Day with Bill Murray.
It's a great movie, but
but the principle is right there. The
Yeah, you have to
principle
let
is right.
go.
If you really watch that movie, you watch it, you'll find out that principle.
Yeah. And that's hard.
Right.
It's really hard. So, thanks, and we're looking forward to sharing more.